I was folding laundry when Dylan called to say he was on his way. My boyfriend Mark was still at work and wouldn't be home until late, and I didn't think much of it. Dylan and I had been close in college roommates for 2 years late night. Talks, drunk pizza runs, secret jokes whispered in lecture halls. Then life took its course. He moved to Seattle. I stayed in Chicago. Messages became less frequent. Birthdays, then none. Until a text last week, "Hey, I'm in town. Can I crash for a night or two?" Asterisk, I said yes before really thinking about it. Asterisk, when he arrived, he looked like time had done him a favor. Taller, or maybe just more confident. His scruffy beard suited him, and his eyes had that familiar gleam, mischievous, unreadable. He hugged me like we hadn't skipped a beat, and for a moment I felt 20 again. Asterisk, nice place, he said, kicking off his boots as I closed the door behind him. Smells like candles and monogamy, asterisk, I laughed. Mark's influence, asterisk, he grinned. Still with him? Asterisk, 3 years now. Asterisk, Dylan dropped his duffel by the couch. Wow, you're practically married. Asterisk, I shrugged, trying not to sound defensive. It's good, stable, comfortable. Comfortable, he repeated, like the word tasted strange in his mouth. That night, we ordered Chinese and opened a bottle of Red Mark had been saving. I shouldn't have, but Dylan was already uncorking it before I could say no. We sat close on the couch, knees touching like it didn't mean anything. Talk flowed easily, stories of old professors, dumb exes, weird jobs. He told me about his new life out west, the startup he worked for, the guy he almost moved in with until it collapsed. Asterisk, you ever think about the old days? He asked suddenly, eyes fixed on the flickering candle between us. Asterisk, sometimes, I said. When I'm not swamped, asterisk, those nights in our apartment. When we stayed up watching stupid movies. God, I was so in love with you back then. Asterisk, I blinked, unsure if I heard him right. What? Asterisk, he smirked, but his voice stayed soft. You didn't know? Asterisk, no, I paused, heart ticking louder. I thought maybe, but we never. Asterisk, yeah, he said, leaning back. We didn't. Asterisk, the silence wasn't awkward. It was something else, weighted, suspended. Asterisk, I didn't want to mess things up, he added. And you had that boyfriend, remember? The one who played bass and talked like he was in a Tarantino movie. Asterisk, Eli, I murmured, almost smiling. Asterisk, God, he sucked. Asterisk, I laughed. Dylan laughed too, but the kind that trails off into something quieter. Then he looked at me and something shifted. His fingers brushed mine on the couch. Just a small touch. I didn't move away. Asterisk, I should have. Asterisk, Mark texted. Hope you're having fun. Tell Dylan I said hi. I didn't reply. Asterisk, later, we watched an old movie, something from our college days. We wrapped ourselves in a throw blanket like we used to, only this time it felt like a choice. I could feel his shoulder against mine. The warmth of his thigh. I didn't lean in, but I didn't lean away either. Asterisk, still into guys with guitars? He asked during a quiet scene. Asterisk, not since Eli. Asterisk, he chuckled, then glanced sideways. What about guys with no plan, a backpack, and an overdue therapist bill? Asterisk, I turned my head slowly to meet his gaze. Our faces were close, too close. His breath smelled like wine and memories. His eyes searched mine for something, permission, maybe. Oh, regret. I shouldn't, I whispered. I know, he said. But do you want to? Asterisk, the air between us felt thinner than it should have. Every sound outside the apartment traffic, a distant dog bark, a car alarm faded into the hum of tension wrapped around us. I should clean up, I said, standing too fast. He nodded, not offended, not surprised. Just watch me go to the kitchen. Asterisk, I rinsed dishes I hadn't used. My hands trembled under the water. Behind me, the TV kept playing and Dylan remained on the couch, silent, waiting. Asterisk, I didn't go back right away. But I didn't tell him to leave either. Asterisk, and that's how it began. Not with a kiss. Not with a betrayal. Just a moment that could have ended, but didn't. The next morning, the sunlight poured into the living room like nothing had happened. Dylan was already up, barefoot in the kitchen, making coffee like he belonged there. His hair was a mess. His shirt was wrinkled. And when he looked over his shoulder and smiled, I felt a punch of guilt right in my chest. Asterisk, morning, he said. Didn't wake you, did I? No, I lied, Mark had texted again. Crazy day today. Don't wait for me to eat. Love you. I stared at the message longer than necessary before locking my phone and setting it aside. Asterisk I watched Dylan pour 2 mugs and hand me one. Our fingers touched again, this time casually, but it still jolted me. I hated how I noticed everything now. The way he leaned against the counter, the sound of him sipping coffee, the fact that he didn't apologize for last night, because nothing had technically happened, but everything had already changed. Asterisk, I was thinking of heading out today. He said, his voice unreadable. Asterisk, you don't have to. Asterisk, he raised an eyebrow. You sure? I said yes anyway. We spent the afternoon walking around the neighborhood, pretending we were just friends catching up. We passed the bookstore we used to haunt and the park where we once drank cheap beer on a picnic blanket. Dylan was funny, magnetic, easy to talk to, but all of it was threaded with a new tension, an unspoken dare that hovered between us. Asterisk, when we got home, the apartment felt smaller, quieter. I showered first. When I came out, towel slung low on my waist, Dylan was sitting on the edge of the bed I shared with Mark, scrolling through his phone. I froze, heart kicking harder. Didn't mean to invade the sacred space, he said, looking up. It's fine. I went to the dresser, trying not to notice his eyes drifting. I pulled on a shirt and jeans too fast. My hands fumbled with the buttons. Asterisk, you okay? He asked. I don't know, I answered honestly. That night Mark called. I put him on speaker. Dylan sat on the couch, scrolling again, pretending not to listen. Asterisk, sorry I've been slammed, Mark said, his voice sweet and tired. You too good? Asterisk, yeah, I said, forcing a smile he couldn't see. It's been nice catching up. Asterisk, tell him to stay as long as he wants. Asterisk, I'll tell him. Asterisk, I hung up and didn't say anything for a while. Dylan finally looked over. Asterisk, still think it's just catching up? Asterisk, I didn't answer. I couldn't. Asterisk, we drank more wine, more than we should have. The kind that makes your skin feel too warm and your thoughts slow down. Dylan sat next to me on the couch again, like the night before, but this time there was no pretense. No movie playing. No blanket between us. Just air and silence. He leaned in first. I didn't stop him. Asterisk, the kiss was gentle, almost cautious, like he expected me to pull away. When I didn't, it deepened. His hands moved to my waist, mine to his chest. My heart was thunder. My mind a blur. I thought of Mark, then stopped thinking altogether. Asterisk, we stumbled back into the bedroom, my bedroom. The sheets we shared, the photos on the nightstand. I saw them all in flashes and gasps in between moments I never thought I'd allow. Asterisk, there was something desperate in the way we moved, something that made it feel like we were trying to swallow years in a single breath. I told myself I had control, that I could stop at any moment, but I didn't want to. That was the worst part. I wanted it. I wanted him. Asterisk, afterward, we lay tangled in silence. The room spun slightly, and the air was thick with what we'd done. Asterisk, I've imagined this so many times. Dylan said softly. Asterisk, I turned my face to the ceiling. Don't. He didn't speak again, in the dark. I could still feel Mark's side of the bed cold and empty. Asterisk, I knew what I had done. And I knew, even then, that it wouldn't be the last time. Asterisk. Dylan left the next morning. Asterisk. He didn't say much while he packed. Just moved around the apartment like a ghost collecting pieces of a life that was never really his. I sat at the kitchen table with a half-eaten bowl of cereal and 1,000 things I couldn't say. The silence between us was louder than anything we'd done. Thanks for letting me stay, he said, finally. I nodded. Of course. Asterisk, his duffel hung off his shoulder. The same one he dropped by the couch just 2 nights earlier when everything still felt innocent. He paused by the door, looking at me like he wanted to say something else, maybe offer an apology or justification, or maybe nothing at all. In the end, he just smiled. Not the kind that meant happiness. The kind that masked regret. Asterisk, and then he was gone. Asterisk, when Mark came home that night, he kissed me like always. His arms around my waist. The smell of office coffee and aftershave. I closed my eyes and let him hold me and hated myself for every second of it. He didn't notice anything off. Not the way my voice cracked slightly. Not the extra glass of wine I poured that evening. Not the fact that I avoided looking at the bed too long. We made dinner together, pasta and garlic bread, his favorite. I asked about his meetings, and he told me a funny story about his boss tripping over a power cord during a presentation. I laughed where I was supposed to, smiled where it mattered. It was muscle memory by now, but inside I was hollowing out. Days passed, then a week. Dylan didn't text, didn't call. I checked my phone more times than I could admit, always with a strange mix of anxiety and relief. Part of me wanted him to reach out. The other part prayed he never would. The silence, in some twisted way, protected the illusion that what happened had been a momentary lapse of fluke, but the guilt never faded. It moved in like a tenant and settled beneath my ribs. Every time Mark touched me, I stiffened. Every time he said, "I love you," I hesitated just a fraction of a second before replying. I'd catch myself watching him when he wasn't looking, wondering if he knew. If he sensed the shift? He'd hum while washing dishes, kiss my shoulder before falling asleep, make coffee just the way I liked it. And all I could think was, you deserve someone better. One night, Mark brought up the idea of taking a short trip together. Maybe somewhere quiet. Just us, we haven't really reconnected in a while. I nodded, forcing a smile. Yeah, that sounds nice. And it did. But also, it didn't, because the version of me he wanted to reconnect with no longer existed. Something inside me had changed, something I couldn't take back. I kept thinking about that last thing Dylan said, lying there beside me in the dark. I've imagined this so many times. I wondered if I had too all those years ago. If I'd buried it beneath decency, beneath loyalty, beneath love. Maybe this wasn't just a mistake. Maybe it was a confession that had waited too long, but it didn't matter now. One morning, I opened my laptop to find an old photo of the three of us, me, Dylan, and Mark, from a camping trip 2 summers ago. Mark had his arm around both of us, smiling wide, unaware. I stared at it until my eyes stung. I didn't delete it. I just closed the screen. I still haven't told Mark. Maybe I never will. Maybe that's the price of my silence, that I live with the memory while pretending it never happened. It wasn't the kind of betrayal that screams. It was quiet. It was slow. And it left no bruises, only a single truth I can never undo. Dylan was just a visit until he wasn't.